Just gonna, so just to remind you all that you have these labs and these assignments, do get onto those and sort of, if you'll do that, that'll make your life a little bit easier. Today, let's talk about teams. Now, when we talk about teams in this exercise, or sorry, this lecture, there's the concept is introduced that was developed by this fellow by the name of Tuckman. And so you'll see a reference to that. It's a model, right? And so a model is not perfect. It it's not real. It's just something which is the nearest approximation. It's like somebody looking out over a beautiful sand dunes or something like that, and they got a piece of paper and a pencil and they draw something. That would be a model, maybe, and that's only a two-dimensional model. It doesn't really capture everything that's there, but it's enough so that people can look at it and recognize it and maybe sort of have some thought experiments with it. And so that's what we've got. We've got a model on teams. And as I said, it may not be a perfect model. There's a lot more about human beings, especially, that we don't know than the stuff that we do know. And that's exciting because that means there's stuff for you guys to go and figure out, I suppose. But there's a lot still to learn, and these models may change as we sort of learn a little bit more. But they have been found to be a useful model. Businesses have been using this model and quite successfully as a way of sort of predicting things and explaining things that are happening in their business. And so that's what we're going to look at. The model, by the way, that we're going to look at in this is, as I said, it's the Tuckman model. And so Tuckman was a psychologist. And so psychologists, some of them do sit around and think, that's not a very fair way or a nice way of saying it. In their time when they're not doing experimenting and talking to people, they do reflect upon different relationships and things like that. And so they are prone to coming up with things like models like this. And so that's kind of helpful to the rest of us, I suppose. Well, let's see if I can, this is a problem with, you know what, is it okay if I just do it like this rather than filling up the whole screen? Oh, anyway, so teams, there's some things that you should be able to do. Basically, the idea about the team and the Tuckman model, the idea there is how do we form and how do we maintain a team? And the concept that you'll get, I hope, is that a team, developing a team which works effectively and efficiently requires a process. And there's certain things with prerequisites, that is, that there's certain things that have to happen before something else can happen. That's what Tuckman has determined in his model. And we'll have a chance to have a look at that. Now, why are teams important? Basically, I hope you can get this out of this diagram. Diagrams can be useful because we can see things and sort of relate to them. But imagine yourself as this person sitting in the middle of a service desk, and you've got so much pressures on you. You have all of these customers coming to you from lots of different channels. There's lots of things to do. It's actually more than you can do by yourself, and so you have a team. So the idea of a team is that we can divide up the work effectively, and that we can build on each other, and so that each of us can support the other people in the team. So a team, we've got a specific definition for it. The key part of this definition that's important to us is they work together to achievement of a goal. So they're organized to work together to achieve a common goal. Doesn't say the word common, but that's what it means. They all have the same goal and they're working toward that goal. And so a team player is a person that's going to be in that team and is going to be contributing to that team, and so that everybody is going to benefit, including themselves, because of their efforts that they put into the team. So this is going back to that slide. Why do we need to sort of have a team? And it's just that there's so much new stuff in IT. So our customers are going to have so many different problems and issues that it's just not possible for a single person to get across it all. And so they definitely need help from others in a team. So what about a team? As we go back to that definition that we had a minute ago, a team, they all are working together for a common goal. And so that common goal we could refer to as a clear sense of purpose. Shared leadership. Shared leadership means that everybody in the team is actually being a bit of a leader. I said a bit of a leader as opposed to the sort of the tyrant leader, but being a bit of a leader means that they're taking responsibility for what they're doing. Diversity is a kind of a charged and strong word nowadays, but the meaning that I believe it has here with the team is the fact that different people are bringing different qualities, they're bringing different understandings, and they're bringing different, yeah, good afternoon now, they're bringing their different skills. So you wouldn't have a team where everybody is an expert in Java programming, but we don't have anybody that's done network administration. You know, I mean, that wouldn't be diversity. So diversity would mean that you would have people that have all kinds of different skills, and they bring them to it. Sorry, I went on about that for a while, but anyways, that's the meaning that I got out of the textbook when I looked at it. Oh, or let's go back and do the other ones. Openness and trust. Back in the 1990s and 1980s, it was this big thing about you could make a lot of money as a consultant going around to different businesses, consulting them on how they could be better in their business. And one of the things that they always used to do is they do these team building skills. And one of the things that used to always show up in the team building skills things was this trust thing, right? And how the trust thing would work is you'd stand on the end of something like a chair or a pole or a fence or something like that, and you'd open your arms and you'd sort of fall forward, and your teammate, or fall backwards was better, yeah. Oh yeah, you might be just standing straight and you'd fall backwards, and your team members would hold you up, and then you'd look around and you'd say, oh yeah, that's my team, So it was trust building. Oh, we had lots of fun things. Yeah, we used to get paid money to go and do this, right? I mean, go and stay in hotels and do this silly stuff out of the lawn. Back in the 80s, I guess they had lots of more money those days, right? Yeah, that's what we used to do. But at the end of that, supposedly, we would come back and, oh yeah, I trust my team members and stuff. Well, I don't know if it really made that much difference, but it's kind of fun, and they had good food at the hotel. So yeah, I went on a couple of those. Mission values, yeah, as I said, so I mentioned the 1980s, it's kind of like somebody from the 1980s is calling and asking for their theory back, because this is stuff that was in all the books in the 1980s and 1990s. I'm not sure if it is now, but here you go. Here's a blast from the past, folks. So we used to spend, Lincoln, when we went to these get together with everybody in the team, we would do this stuff, right? We'd get down and we'd say, okay, let's see if we can massage the mission statement. And so the mission statement, sorry, when I say the mission statement for the entire company, that would come down from like out of heaven, like, sorry, I know about that, but from our leaders who are sort of all powerful. And then what would happen is each different department, what we'd have to do is we'd have to look at that was given to us by our kings in the top of the company, and we'd have to sort of adapt it to what we're doing. And then we would have our own little mission statement that supports that mission statement. And so after a sort of a day after we've fallen into each other's arms and stuff like that and ate good food, then we would sit around and we'd think, well, okay, how do we actually, what is it that we're trying to do in our business? And the mission statement is quite a formula that you have to follow. And you can see that formula in this mission statement here. You have to say, what is it you're trying to achieve, for who, and who's going to do it and how. And so that's what we're doing here, right? So our mission is we're going to solve problems efficiently. This is what we're going to do. And who are we going to do it for? For the Burlington High School. And it's specifically what we're going to support their technology. There you go. There's a mission statement. I don't know how long that would take to do, but anyway, so that is supposed to be everything that we do. We're going to look at that. You see these mission statements, they would be up on the walls and places like that. I think we actually have it here at the college. So some of the stuff from the 80s and 90s didn't sort of go away. So the idea of shared leadership, very important in a technical team. So here we're sort of focusing on the idea of a technical team. So technical team, we got these IT guys and ladies, and they sort of have a a kind of a nerdy way of doing stuff, right? But the thing is, they got particular skills that are so useful. We need to pull those skills out and use them. Well, how do we do that? We have to sort of pull them to the front a little bit. And so that's a kind of a special kind of leadership is required for that. I suppose it might be similar in an engineering department or something like that. But in a service desk, it's like that. We need to pull those skills up, and people that might not want to stand out in front, we have to sort of get them to do it a little bit. And we can do that if we work things as a team. And we'll see that in a minute when we go through the forming of the team. Shared leadership means that everybody has to take a responsibility and a leadership at some point. All right, so these are some more of those things I mentioned diversity, and there's some other stuff about teamwork. Very nice. Openness and trust. I think so I told you about the training that we used to do. So, and the other one would be blindfolded. And, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I remember thinking when we did this, last time I did that was like, oh well, I think we actually had something like that here about. But I remember thinking, yeah, this is kind of fun. It kind of reminds me when I was in high school. So, no, but it's not. I don't know why. The point being that you have to feel that the people in your team are going to support you. And some of this just comes down to basic ethics and business ethics, right? I mean, so in every business, the people that work there have to have there's a sort of an ethical standard. And part of the ethical standard is you don't dump on your other members of the team. So there's an accountability, every member of the team. I'll give you an example of that that's right here. Okay, so because of COVID, we can't have more than 10 people or 13 people or whatever. There's a certain number, maybe it's 15. We can't have a full classroom of students. But the other thing is the Ministry of Education doesn't like the idea of us having all of our exams online. Now we're doing that in this course because, well, we are. So a lot of other courses, they're not allowing their students to do their tests online. And if we had a final exam, you would not be doing it offline. That's actually a decree almost from the Ministry of Education. This is it. You have to, if you have a final exam, you have to do it face to face, right? It has to be in a room. So that creates a problem which can only be solved by a team. And so how is that? Well, how would that happen? It would be, well, one of the teachers says, well, I got a test and I can't supervise all my students because I got 18 students and I'm only allowed to have 15 in the room. So can somebody help me do the test? And so as a team player, we'll say, yeah, I'll come and help you do the test. No, not because you're going to give me some money or not because you're going to do it for me, but because we're in the same team, and people in the same team support each other for no other reason than that. And so, and as we do that, there's a big benefit to us out of that because they know that we've got their back. We're not going to let them go out there and have a test and it's not supported. On the same thing, we get the feeling that they're going to want to reciprocate because people do that. And so, yeah, that's an example, I would say, of a team here. Yeah, that's ironic. Okay, yes. So the point being here that a leader is, if you have a bad leader, then you're not really going to have a good team. Sometimes, yeah. I mean, if you have extremely quality people who are so focused and professional, yeah. But a leader obviously can make a lot of well, it says there, yeah, successful team can work around a poor leader, but an effective leader does definitely improve the team. So there we go. We've got some. Let's say these are if we're cooking up a good team, these would be some of the ingredients that we would want to have. And basically it comes with professionality. I would throw them almost all into that. Now, the idea here is that a team doesn't happen without a process. You don't just put people together and you got a team. And so some of the most classic teams that you might have come across would be like people in the armed forces, fighting units. They become teams, and they're definitely not teams immediately. And that's why they need very strong leadership at the start. When you put people together in a fighting unit, you have to have a strong leadership, and that is implied and it's explicit. That is, you know who your leader is. That's the person that's got the bird on their shoulder, right? As opposed to the other guys that got little stripes on the side. And so, you know, it's very clear who's the leader. But within that team, over time, they will grow to sort of work together. One of the things that you find with these kind of people in the military is that they will find themselves in difficult situations in a military conflict, and they realize that the thing that motivates them the most is not, you know, what the great leader said or anything like that, but it's about their team. They know their team's got their back and they've got their back. That kind of stuff. It's kind of almost a mythology around it, and you've seen all these movies, you know, where they don't leave the wounded people behind and all that kind of stuff. All right, so now I'm going to go through the Tuckman model, and we've got like 5 or 6 stages of the Tuckman model. Well, there's 4 of them that have these rhyming names, right? Forming, storming, norming, performing, and we're going to go through those. So that's nice. Tuckman come up with this nice model, and very nicely he's got all these little rhyming words for them, but it does work kind of good. So I just mentioned when you throw a team together, it's good to have that person out front who's got the bird on their shoulder, if you want to look at that that way, that it's obvious who they're the leader, and we look to them for direction, and they give us the direction to get things going. They're going to specify what are our goals, etc. And so that's the first phase of a team, is we throw them together, and with that leader, that manager is going to give sort of step by step, this is what we're going to do, this is our objectives. Now, from that, we will move into the next phase, and it's very important that you notice the direction of these arrows, right? We go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 now. The idea of the Tuckman model is that we don't miss out any steps. If you miss out a step, then you're stuck there, right? You know, you can't go from forming to norming. You can't go from forming to performing. You have to, the only way you can get to norming is if you go through storming. Does that make sense? The only way you can get to performing is if you go through norming. And so so the idea being that there are teams that we put them together, and we don't actually get the forming done properly. Well, that's where they're stuck. They're never ever going to be a performing team. They're going to be a less than performing team. All right, so let's look at those phases. These phases are like, if you had a healthy team, you would go through these phases. So the second phase there is where people start sort of challenging each other. So in the first phase, they're going to be you know, just sort of very polite and standing back and sort of just listening to the leader and sort of getting their ideas and figuring out what's going on. Now that they know what's going on, then they're going to start sort of bumping shoulders with each other. I'm saying that metaphorically. I don't mean that physically. But what I mean is that they're going to sort of speak and listen, and that person's going to say something. I agree with that. Oh, I don't agree with that. Oh, I agree with that. Oh, I don't agree with that. That kind of thing is going to be happening in the storming, where there's a lot of different ideas, and some of them you don't like it. And so and the thing is that the politeness is kind of dropped. Right? It's like, whereas before we're just like kind of at the start of the team, you'd be, oh, okay, yeah, is this how it's going to be, or is that how it's going to be? You're not really too sure what's going on, so you're not going to be saying a lot of this. But during the storming phase, yeah, you know how it's going to be, and you're like, no, I don't agree with that idea. This idea is okay. And so those kind of things are, so you have a sort of a building up coming out of that. And then in the norming phase, we basically got through all of that. We're starting to understand each individual person, where their ideas are, what ideas we think are good, what ideas we don't think are good. We start relationships and we start working as a team. We're committed to the team. And then lastly, we're in performing mode, where, as it says there, everything is focused on the, we've got all the dynamics of getting our team together behind us. Our team is there, we know they're there, and so we can focus on what it is that we're trying to achieve. So there's just some notes about all of that. I've basically said all this, so I'm not going to go over it again. There's a storming phase. You must do the storming phase if you want to get to the norming phase. The storming phase comes after the forming phase. You must, the norming phase, all right, people are starting to take responsibility because we've worked through that stuff of the, I say this, you say that, I don't like that, I like this, that kind of stuff. We've gone through that, and now we're starting to see ourselves as people working together. There's a bit of a camaraderie and a shared sense of purpose in the norming phase. And in the performing phase, that's sort of, we're getting to a highly tuned sort of like machine, which is our team. Now that's kind of cool, and you might say, yeah, that sounds like kind of like a heavenly state. We should stay like that. But then what's going to happen, of course, is that you'll finish the things that you're going to do as a team, and then the team will be broke up, and then you'll go to another team, and so then you get to do it all again. So the point being here, and I think I made that point before, is some teams will never get to the performing stage because they haven't gone through the other phases effectively. Okay, so what if you have conflict? Okay, so rule of thumb, conflict's bad, non-conflict's good, right? Well, that's not true. I mean, human beings, we just have conflict. We must have conflict, otherwise you don't have any ideas, right? Or any unique ideas. If you have an idea, don't expect it to be the same as everybody else's ideas, right? And as a result, there's going to be some conflict. So what do we do when we get this conflict? The person likes to do it that way, you like to do it that way. There's a conflict. What do we do? Well, we can ignore it. That would be over here, where we ignore it. We just let them do whatever they want. That's being passive. That's we're not reacting. But we see that that's a destructive behavior. We're not benefiting the team. Or we could just say, well, my way or the highway. I have an idea. My idea is way better than your idea. This is the way we're going to do it, my way or the highway. Well, then we're being very active about it, but in a destructive way. We're winning at all costs. The other guys aren't going to be sort of going to be contributing the way that we'd want them to. Or we could get into this other column. So some of the time we're being a bit quiet, we're reflecting on things, we're being very careful about the way that we interact. And some of the times we're working with other people a lot, and we're working our ideas with them, but not in a way which is sort of trampling them down. And so we want to stay in this column here where things are constructive. And that doesn't mean that we don't have conflict. It just means that we manage that conflict in this way. We're not trampling on people, and we're not yielding to people, but we are being reflective, and we are reaching out and sort of working. We're keeping a lot of dialogue, a lot of talking with them, that type of thing. So what about conflict? Another little bit about conflict. Conflict's going to come. What do we do with the conflict? Again, in this diagram, this is shown quite good, right? So there's two things that we could do when conflict comes. Here comes the conflict up the bottom of the diagram. Well, what can we do? We can be frustrated and angry. Of course we are. But then we got two choices. We can engage in the conflict. That is, that we can go back to that model that we saw a second ago, right? We can go back there and we can say, well, let's engage. Let's talk it out. Let's express what we're thinking about that. Let's think about it, all right? Or we can avoid it. Now, the problem with avoiding the conflict is conflict doesn't go away. It's right there where it was. And we're just stuck in this loop. Conflict. No, so I hope you can see from this diagram, we just have to engage the conflict. Maybe it'll be resolved this time. If our engagement is that we try and dominate over the other people, then it won't be resolved. There's going to be these bad feelings. So there's two loops we could be stuck in, right? We could be stuck in the avoid loop, or it could be stuck in the aggressive dominate loop, or we could work with other people and resolve conflict. That's what we want to do. Now, about the saying things over and over again, I hope there's a bit of a hint in that word. If somebody is saying something over and over again to you, or if you're saying something over and over again to somebody, that means that that person thinks that the other person doesn't understand. Remember, key requirement that people have, a key personal need that people have, is to be understood, to understand people and to be understood. And if the other person is just saying the same thing over and over again, means that they think that you haven't listened to them, or if you have listened to them, you haven't tried to understand them. And so they're going to just keep saying it until you do, right? And so you can see why it's kind of important just to try and understand them, so that, so that you actually can get somewhere. Other thing there, are people wrong sometimes? Yeah. And so if you are wrong, I'm wrong more than I'd like to be. It's good to just admit it. And you can't hide it when you're wrong. People know anyway, so you might as well own up to it. All right. So how can we be a team player? We're going to run out of time. I think we can finish this off. So personal commitment, work with other people, all that. So here's some stuff about that. Job says, so there we go. This here is, if you look at that, that's just sort of personal responsibility, being ethical, being a good workmate, right? So a deadline comes, you meet it. You're honest. You adapt quickly. Avoid politics. You could talk a lot about politics. Now, politics is not about, Donald Trump and Joe Biden. What we mean by the politics there is you get three people together. There's the old saying about politics. We're talking about office politics. Three people together in an office. Two of them will get together about how they can sort of take advantage of the third one. That's office politics, right? And it happens in every office to some extent. If we have a properly functioning team, it should happen a lot less. And also if people are full on, ethical in the way they work. But having said that, you really shouldn't think that, well, when I go to an office, everybody there is going to be ethical and they're all going to do all these things. Quite possibly there's going to be somebody in your office that's not going to, and quite possibly they'll be doing the politics, right? And so you have to be aware of it, and you have to actually build up your sort of personal network so that you are not damaged by the politics. So it says avoid politics. You shouldn't be involved in politics, but you should be secured from it. You should be safe from politics by building up your own sort of, people say personal brand or whatever, but just by reaching out to other people, building up goodwill, building up a network. Okay, so again, another model. So we like to have models, right? And as I said, model sort of shows us a way of looking at reality, but it's not reality because it's like a cartoon sketch of reality. And so when we say that somebody is a challenger or somebody's a collaborator or a communicator or a contributor, probably we're all a little bit of all of these things, but some people are a little bit more like challenger. We have these people that more often than not, they like to do things like, why is this happening? What would happen if we did this? You said this is to happen. I think that'll happen, right? Have I experienced any of those in my past jobs? What, you mean these people or politics or what? Yeah, I think just about.
Yeah, the politics.
Oh,
I mean, when you mention actually the non-ethical and the politics.
Politics, big time. Not so much here because, now why I say not so much here, because teaching is a special kind of work. Basically, the way you see it is pretty much how it is. one teacher, a bunch of students. And, you know, we're pretty much sort of almost independent in the way that we work. Now, there's a little bit, we could get into some politics if we wanted to, but if you're sitting in an office doing office work, yeah, that's where you get politics. And I worked in a telephone company for a while, and yeah, that was full on politics. You know, I mean, basically jockeying, you know, one person trying to show up another person, you know, all kinds of conversations happening, gossiping, you know, all of that. That's all sort of office politics. Saw a lot. Yeah. Oh yeah. And to be honest, I didn't like it all that much because maybe, yeah, I don't like that. Now maybe some people do, and some people are pretty good at it. But
Yeah, it's actually a waste of energy, and good people normally are the ones who lose. Doesn't mean that they lost, but they are not good actually with bad people.
Yeah, that's right. But it's there, and what can you do?
Yes.
So, well, you notice I'm in a job where politics doesn't affect me anymore. So that's my response.
Yes, I thought it's my dream job too.
I have had a job where politics was big, and I didn't like it, so I'm not there anymore. So yeah, here we go. Now this is a very nice diagram of the showing how a personality type, or they call it a leadership type, how a leadership type, a type of person, how they shine at what phase in the Tuckman model. And we've actually added an extra phase, adjourning. And I mentioned that a minute ago, where we said that you know, the team will break up at some point. Okay, and so when you form, you need to have, well, what? You need to be formal. You need the person whose leadership style is formal. When you are storming, or you need to have somebody who's able to step back a bit and resist control by the group. Okay, norming, then everybody in the team. This is where we have our shared leadership a lot. So where everybody is accepting of other viewpoints, etc. And performing, where that's sort of internalizing the idea of the team. And at the end, the adjourning, you know, that's kind of, as it says there, where we celebrate and then we break up. Okay, understanding your role in the help desk. What do I say about that? It's not much. Okay, so yeah, basically, be a team player. Don't sort of say that, you know, everything is because of me. It's good to be a little bit humble, I think. And all right. Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought, because you got me thinking about when I was working in the in the political. All right. Okay, so we've got a term here which is about emotional intelligence. So, you know, there's this thing called the autism, the autism spectrum. In the autism spectrum, you have these people, and some of them are really, really smart, but they're not able to sort of pick up cues that people give that are like nonverbal cues and things like that. And so they're very bad at interpersonal relationship. And those people are autistic. So emotional intelligence, I think, is kind of a measure of that. You know, how good are you at sort of understanding yourself? That's the first thing about emotional intelligence. How do you understand yourself and why you do things and how you do things? And can you understand and pick up the clues that are coming from other people that help you to understand sort of things that they would communicate, but not in a very nonverbal way. Well, sometimes verbal, but in a way which is not so direct. And I would say that's emotional intelligence. But a lot of it is actually just inward as well. You know, do you understand why you did something? You know, it's like, oh, I'm driving down the road. Oh, I just got angry, you know, because that guy cut in front of me. Do I understand why I did that? And, you know, so if you have emotional intelligence, you'd say, oh yeah, that's just because I'm in a hurry to go to work. I don't know that guy. If I met that guy, I'd probably talk to him for 10 minutes and get to like him. And he's not really a bad guy. So, you know, why am I getting angry? Well, you know what? I'm just going to chill out, because I have emotional intelligence, which means that I can adapt to the situation. And I realize that there's nothing good happening from me getting angry at that guy. let it go. He's probably an okay guy. And, I'm just going to get to work and do my thing. Right? So, I mean, that's my idea of emotional intelligence. And so, yeah, so you recognize your own emotions, recognizing others, motivate yourself to work through them in the most positive way.
Sir,
Yes.
just two things actually. The first one, we did the first task and the second task for the project, me and Muhammad, but it doesn't show. Like for the first task, I like submitted, show for me the grade, but second task he did submit it, but doesn't show for me the grade.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't got in PeopleSoft. I don't have a place. I think I just have one grade for the whole project. So in PeopleSoft, you'll just have. If you want to have a grade on that, you'd have to submit it in D2L too. You'd have to submit 2 of them, one for each of you.
Okay.
But
And
otherwise, you can wait until I put it into PeopleSoft, which won't be until I finish marking the last task, because I don't have it broken down by task for PeopleSoft.
Okay. Second thing, sir, can we have the assignment until Saturday, if it's okay?
You want extension?
If it's okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, like all the class, because it will be on Thursday and all we will have vacation and like this stuff, and
All right.
weekend.
I can see I'm not going to finish this lesson in this thing. So what I'm going to do is